Genshin misconceptions. We all know these. We've all come across tons of misinformation. But today I want to talk about something more specific. Kaidahara Kazuha and the Wanderer. We're all familiar with these two characters, but what I want to address in this video is their connection to one another. More specifically, the parallels between these two. And you might be asking, why them? For one, they're two of my favorite characters. The other reason is simply to showcase the potential dynamic of them and to shed light on a lot of misunderstandings about their characters as a duo. Cause I know very well how Kazuha and Scaramouche being in the same phrase pisses off a lot of people. There is also another reason, which is I always wanted to do like an updated version of my Scaramouche lore video, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to do so. Okay, here's a little warning before we start. I will be mentioning quite some heavy topics because both the lore have trauma in it, so it's just basically unavoidable, so just bear that in mind. Alright then, to do that we'll have to go through each one individually, starting with the Wanderer.
It took 3 betrayals for me to finally understand. The world is just an elaborate tapestry of lies. My fury will never be quelled.
The Wanderer was first created by Raiden A some years after Makoto's death. He was supposed to be a prototype puppet to hold on to the Electronosis, but A deemed him incapable of doing so, for he shed tears in his sleep. She considered him weak, thinking that the burden was too great for him to handle. Feeling a little bit of remorse, she did not bring herself to kill him, but discarded him nonetheless, putting him in an eternal slumber and locking him in a certain domain, called the Shake Pavilion. However, he woke himself from slumber for an unknown reason after Katsuragi have found him there. I know there's people out there that are still holding on to that idea of A not actually abandoning him and setting him free, and it was all a misunderstanding. Think about it this way. Would you actually be saying that in real life if a toddler was just left behind in a random street at night? Would you be saying about the parents, oh no, they just set him free, they didn't want to have control over them? Would you be actually saying that? Just think about it logically. Just as Scaramouche said in his voice line about her, she did not take responsibility for her own creation, and that's it. There is no misunderstanding whatsoever. Maybe in her head she was trying to do the right thing, quote unquote, but it was not the right thing at all. And people should understand that. Like, it's completely fine to admit that. A did a lot of mistakes, so did Scaramouche. So yeah, anyways. Now, I wish not to go deep into his lore, for it will take me the entire video to do so, but I will try to make it as short as possible. After he joined the Tatarasuna family, he had to learn basic human activities from the very start. Bear in mind that he was discarded without a heart, without knowing anything about life, and without any purpose. He was completely lost, only having the knowledge of his creator not wanting him anymore. So when he finally integrated with the Tatarasuna squad, Dottore came to ruin everything for him by sabotaging the sword making and causing the Tatarasuna incident to happen, making the Kabukimono, which is the title Scaramouche went by back then, believe he was betrayed by Katsuragi, Niwa, and the others. Not to mention how Dottore literally ripped out Niwa's heart, giving it to Kabukimono, lying about it, making him throw it away. Yeah, it was really messed up already. But anyways, he have met a single child after that who he lived with for a while. That child died right after, making Kabukimono yet again feel so betrayed, for he felt lied to again and couldn't bear the thought of everyone leaving him behind. Dottore meeting him after that, and that's how he became Scaramouche, the 6th Fatui Harbinger. Having been abused and experimented on physically and mentally, nonetheless, he desired one thing all this time, a heart of his own. He thought the Gnosis would fill his emptiness, but was so wrong. After learning the truth about Dottore from the Irminsul, the shock was too great to handle, for he despised his existence even more, pushing him to actually unalive himself by erasing his own existence from Irminsul. Bear in mind that he had already attempted to do that way before, after the child's death, for he had tried to burn himself in that house, but to no avail, since he was a puppet created by an Archon, he couldn't die. But what he didn't know, however, is that Irminsul only alters memories instead of actually changing the events. So he, quote-unquote, reincarnated as only the Wanderer who have never joined the Fatui nor have met all those people. But later on, after regaining all of his memories, he learned that everyone still died and he had changed nothing. So basically his entire arc story was about how unaliving oneself is never an answer, which is the important point most people have completely missed and brushed over. But I digress. So now he came to understand and want to live his life as a new person, from now on atoning for his sins and trying to heal in the process. He is ready to face anyone he have wronged and definitely not afraid to even get stabbed by them. Well, that was a lot. Now moving on to the second character, Kazuha.
Rest in peace.
This fellow samurai from Inazuma grew up in a noble clan, the Kaitahara clan, which was part of the 5 smithing schools in Inazuma. So naturally, he inherited the art of the swords. He grew up with his father and grandfather. As for his mother, well, she died while giving birth to him. So yeah, he never knew his mother. The clan, however, knew its decline because of the Raiden Gokuden incident, which was caused by Scaramouche. Yet also, the clan itself survived and lived on thanks to him as well. We'll talk about that later. The father have told his son to live a life without the shackles of his clan, but Kazuha thought of himself so incompetent that he's even a disappointment to his father. Later on was the demise of his father and the complete downfall of the clan, so he dismissed the last servant and went on roaming the land as a mere wanderer. The vision hunt decree begun and he found himself cornered. His dear friend has challenged Kujo-Sara in a duel before the throne, losing his life in the process. Kazuha flew with his dying vision for he was too late. Being a wanted criminal after that, he had no other choice but to run and hope that somehow he'll make it. After being saved by Beidou and her crew, he began traveling the seas until he met the Traveler. The Inazuma events that we all know have happened and Kazuha finally regained his freedom. Later on, he would come to know the truth behind his clan's downfall, and after reading his great-grandfather's letter, Kazuha stated that he will not hold any grudges for Kunikuzushi aka Scaramouche, for he only wants to focus on the present and the future. But he will not hesitate to take action if Scaramouche decides to do something bad again. So for people who still believe that Kazuha would actually hate Scaramouche or like there's this beef between them or whatever, this entire misconception, there's no such thing. Now, I guess these were pretty good and short summaries for both their lives. And if you've been following up with it, then you might have noticed the similarities between them and even how their stories intertwine. They both only knew one parent. They both felt unworthy and incompetent towards their parents' expectations. They both lost that parent figure they had and roamed the land with no purpose, meeting several people on the way. That also includes their social status and nobility. They were both wronged by the Electro Archon and quit their homelands to another nation. But here's how each one of them became the person they are today. While Kunikuzushi was casted away by his own creator, who he himself called Mother, Kazuha grew up in a healthy environment with his loving father. When they were both lost, roaming the land, Kunikuzushi had the misfortune of meeting the Tore who ruined his entire life and made him join the Fatui only to get abused and manipulated in the process by him and the Jester. On the other hand, Kazuha have met several wonderful people who have helped him and inspired him to move forward. So that begs the question, if Scaramouche experienced life the way Kazuha did, would he have become a good person? And the answer is yes. We even got to see it ourselves in his interlude quest. The wanderer we have met before regaining his memories was the complete mirror image of Kazuha. His tone, his voice, his manner of speech, and everything. It was just Kazuha. If you have played Kazuha Story Quest and you were a Kazuha and Scaramouche enthusiast, then I'm pretty sure you might have picked on the parallels between the Kagotsurupe Isshin sword and Kunikuzushi. For context, the sword was forged by a member of the Kaidahara clan that have fled to Snezhnaya when the whole Raiden Gokuden incident have occurred. The owner died and the sword gained its own consciousness, being filled with huge desire to fulfill its master's wish, but eventually strayed from the right path and killed multiple people on its way to Inazuma. Do you see where I'm going for? The sword here representing the life of Kunikuzushi, for they have similar experiences. I mean, come on, the sword even looks like Scaramouche's balladeer design. Kazuha at the end of the quest became the new master of the Kagotsurupe Isshin and said he would not wish for someone to get punished, he would rather see them live on and atone for their sins, and that perhaps his obsession with others' aspirations is a flaw in his character. And that's exactly what Scaramouche is doing right now. So here we have it, the same thing he said about Kuni when he learned the truth about his clan's demise. The fact that Kazuha even exists up until now is thanks to Scaramouche sparing the life of Kaidahara Yoshinori, who is Kazuha's great-grandfather. As for the reason why, it's simply because Yoshinori's father was none other than Niwa himself, Scaramouche's old friend in Tatarasuna. After seeing Niwa's son, who was adopted by the Kaidahara clan back then, he decided to stop his revenge plan and spare their life, for he was still fond of Niwa nonetheless, and even showed great interest in Kazuha himself, according to his voice line about him, seeming amused at the individual, for he also had an anemo vision and his feat of blocking the Musune Hitotachi, not to mention that he is a Kaidahara after all. To end this video, I will just say that Kazuha and Kunikuzushi are the sun and moon dynamic, light and darkness, yin and yang even, for their life experiences being similar, yet each one walked towards a different path. Kazuha being understanding, peaceful, and forgiving, while being strong and wise. Meanwhile, Wanderer on the other hand grew hatred inside and only seeking validation and a purpose to live for. If they ever cross paths, what would fate hold for their meeting? We'll see that if Hoyo finally decides to let them meet, which is something I'm 100% confident will happen. But this is where we'll leave it for this video, and I hope it was enjoyable. And I'll see you in the next one.